Welcome to Digging for Kryptonite, breaking news bonus edition. I'm your host, Anthony Desiato, and joining me to discuss the just-released teaser trailer for James Gunn's 2025 Superman film is our pal from All Yak Comics, Skokie, sweet Bernie Gersmeyer. Welcome back, my friend.
Let's go, baby. It's time to talk. We got good stuff to talk about.
Take me home, sweet Bernie. Take me home just like crypto in the Arctic.
Oh, my God. Dude, okay. Where do you want to start?
Let's start with this. I want to hear from you. Tell me about your experience this morning. So the trailer dropped the morning of Thursday, December 19th. Mm-hmm. We are recording at the end of the day on Thursday, December 19th, and people will hear it almost immediately after we're done. So this is as fresh as it can get for us here. So just tell me what the experience was like this morning with that trailer. How many times did you watch it? And just overall impressions, or even, I think more importantly than that, just overall feeling. How are you feeling right now?
Okay, so I feel I'm so excited for the movie based on the tone of the trailer. There's so many things happening in the trailer. There was a lot squeezed into 2 minutes and 20 seconds. I watched a few reaction videos. I watched a few breakdowns. I watched the trailer about, I think, 3 times total. So, long story short, I'm at school. We're doing white elephant parties, getting ready for those kind of things in our last classes for the semester. And nobody was in the room yet. And I have big projector screen, nice nice speakers in my music room. Nobody's there yet. And I get a text it's up from Jared Kilborn, my good buddy. And I went right to it. And jacked it up on the speakers, turned all the lights off, and I was like, oh my God. The first scene is Superman crashing and bloody, and I'm going, you already got me. Let's go. I want to know what's going on. And then the dog. And then I'm like, all right, I'm good. Let's go. What's next? And I was just super psyched. It to me, and I know this, again, people are going to have their own opinions. I've already seen some stuff. I think it is going to be such an interesting blend of what we loved about the Donner movies and Christopher Reeve, that time frame, but what we maybe, as far as what I hoped for more in the modern retellings in the 2010s, I think it's a very happy medium that we're going to find. I'm super excited.
And I guess, I know you and I have talked off mic about this, or we've messaged, but we really haven't had these discussions on the podcast per se. I don't know exactly how you felt prior to this trailer. So I guess that's my other big question is, did this just sort of solidify what you were already feeling? Did it turn you around in any way? Did it change your perception or your expectations of the movie?
You know what it is? And some people probably got triggered because it says in the trailer, James Gunn, director of the Guardians of the Galaxies trilogy. And I actually, of all the Marvel movies, love the first 2 Guardians of the Galaxy movies. I love the tone. I love the vibe for that universe. I really enjoyed that. But I to be honest, knowing kind of where he went with the third part and the tone of those movies, I was a little, I want to say worried, but hesitant. So I was seeing pictures getting released. I was looking at some ideas, still very ambiguous because they're keeping things under wraps, which is awesome. I think that's great, finally, to have little things leaking here, but not too much. But I'll say that the trailer brought my hopes way up as far as what this movie is going to be.
Right on. Okay. Moment of truth, my verdict on this. So I was very excited this morning. I'm not generally a morning person, but I made sure that I was ready to go, and this dropped at 9 a.m. Eastern, which is not exceedingly early, but once again, not a morning person. But I was sitting there in front of my computer. I didn't want to just watch it on my phone. I could have gone all the way and watched it on the TV, on the YouTube app, but I didn't go that far. But I was sitting at my computer, and I had set the YouTube notification, and it had said, I think 8:53. So I was there, And then at that moment, the 2-minute countdown started, and I just sat there.
Oh, like
I just sat there for those 2 minutes,
Yeah.
heart racing. And it was one of those things, even before it started, I just had this moment where I said to myself, this is good that you can still be excited for things like this.
Yes.
And then it started, and I watched it, and I have to say, and perhaps this might surprise people based on comments I've made and prior discussions we've had about Gunn taking over and where we're going with this film and the cinematic universe, but I had a very, very positive reaction to this trailer. And I think it's very promising. I still don't want to get too far ahead of myself. This is something that has come up, and this is something I got to say because it's very important to me and this larger fan journey that I am on and that we're all on. I've had the opportunity to see a big screen Superman debut in theaters 2 times in my lifetime. 2006 with Superman Returns and 2013 with Man of Steel. And in both instances, boy, did I get swept up in the promotional campaigns. And you joined me for an episode on Superman Returns, and you joined me for an episode on Man of Steel. So you know all of this more than anybody. But I was all in. I couldn't be more excited. And the problem was that I think my expectations were set way too high. And I was expecting the kind of movie-going experience that I don't know if it was even possible to attain. But I remember going into Superman Returns and coming out so disappointed. And I came to appreciate that movie more in time, as we talked about. I went into Man of Steel as excited as a person could be. And I came out mixed. And then I came to love that movie in time, as you and I have talked about. But the experience that I have not yet had is going in to see a new Superman on the big screen in the theater and just loving it in the moment and not needing time and reconsideration and rewatches to get there. And so this is important to me because I've seen a lot of just unbridled enthusiasm from a lot of people. That's wonderful and that's great. For me personally, I can't let myself get too far ahead of myself or get too excited because I just, for me, don't think that's the right recipe for ultimately a successful movie-going experience. So I have maintained, and I will continue to maintain, what I believe is a healthy skepticism until I'm actually watching the movie itself. Because we've all seen, not just in the Superman or superhero realm, you can always have a great trailer. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have a great movie. So, so all that to say, I'm definitely more excited now than I was before. I think it's really promising. I had a great experience watching the trailer. At the same time, I don't think you're going to be seeing posts from me online about, oh, let him cook and we're going to feast and this is the best, because we have to see the movie first. So that's where I am right now. But it was a good morning. And my God, I've probably watched this teaser trailer like 10 times by now.
Well, it's funny. Like what I didn't have time to do yet, which I want to do, is I want to go back and watch the Superman Returns trailer. And I want to watch the Man of Steel trailer. And I want to look at like, okay, what did those trailers, how do I say this? How did they set us up for enjoying the movie? But then, like you just said, when we saw the movie, were we bamboozled a little bit by the trailer?
Maybe. I got to tell you, I don't know if this is the same for everybody. I don't know if this is a setting on the DC Studios account or it's just a random YouTube algorithm. But after I get why they dropped the legacy subtitle, but it is kind of difficult to refer to this movie. But when the Superman 25 trailer stopped, the Man of Steel trailer auto played.
Oh,
and I'm like, guys, I don't think you want those back to back for a variety of reasons. But more specifically, so I talked about kind of my overall feeling. More specifically, really specifically, that crypto moment just sang. I thought it just hit perfectly. And was a wonderful, wonderful moment. But bigger picture, I think the trailer, to your point, really did a good job of capturing what it seems the spirit and tone of this movie are going to be. Yes. And what I liked is that it really looks as if Superman / Clark is going to be challenged in a number of different ways. We see the physical challenge from the jump, the fact that he's beaten and bloodied and coughing up blood, to what looks to be a pretty somber moment between Superman and Lois before he's going off at the end when they're in the apartment together. So it really seems like there is going to be a physical challenge, But more importantly than that, we see a very emotional moment between Clark and Pa Kent. We'll talk more about that. And we see that moment of the citizens yelling and even throwing things at him as he's walking. So, not unlike the Snyder movies, just this notion of this kind of being, this figure in a real, quote unquote, real modern world, and how he navigates that and how people view and receive him. So it seems like he's going to be challenged in a number of different ways. And I really like that. And I liked how that came across in the trailer. So I would say those were my kind of biggest picture observations. Let me ask you this, you especially, because you're a musician. Music. We knew going into this that this was going to be a very music heavy trailer and very light on dialogue. And boy, they weren't kidding. I mean, there's exceedingly minimal dialogue. I would have liked a little bit more. I know this is just a teaser, but this was very music heavy. So John Murphy is our composer. And for this trailer came up with this electric guitar riff on the classic John Williams theme. So how did this work for you? What did you hear? What did you make of all of this?
I mean, I'll be honest, that grabbed me immediately. I think what I liked about the trailer in general, with the tone and the music specifically, I think there is something clearly being stated that we are honoring the past, but we are making it our own. And again, you take the classic theme, and now don't forget, with our ages, and maybe if we're thinking about 35 and older, we're the most familiar with the Christopher Reeve movies. So that theme is the theme that you just hear. I have friends that just go bump a bump dum, and like that's just something you hear. And I think there is something to be said about James Gunn saying, "Hey, we are tipping the hat to something amazing from the past, but let's make it fresh." And how, guess what? If you don't really know John Williams and you don't know those themes, that sounds like a pretty baller theme. Like, it sounds freaking awesome. But we're going, yeah, of course it's awesome. It's the theme. But it sounds great. If you're new to this, it sounds very modern and fresh. And I think that's a great way to bring everybody to the middle. And I think it was very smart.
Yeah, it sounded great. Look, we've talked about this. I suspect we might have some new people joining us who've never listened to Digging for Kryptonite, and they're just like, oh, trailer. Right. They certainly have more than enough podcasts and YouTube videos to choose from talking about these 2 minutes and 20 seconds. But for anyone joining us, audience members new and old, I appreciate it, and I'm happy to have you here. So I don't want to belabor the points. We have talked about this before, but for any new folks, this question has come up a lot about whether that John Williams theme is the theme music for the Christopher Reeve movie series, or it's just the theme for Superman. And my position has shifted on this over the years. I'm now more in the camp of it's the Superman theme. I think we've seen it pop up a number of times. It's certainly a magnificent way from a sonic perspective to capture the character. So it's not something that I really oppose in any way. For me, the most important things are that each Superman project has its own distinct theme to it, and that if and when elements of the John Williams score are utilized, that some sort of new spin is put on it. Not unlike this trailer where you had this electric guitar riff. It was great.
Right.
I don't want to fall into a situation like the series finale of Smallville, The Final Moments, where, as Zach and I talked about when we went over that not too long ago, it's like they just kind of put the CD in and press play, right? I want a different spin on it, but I'm more than happy to have elements of it represented there. So I was more than fine with that. And it was totally expected, especially coming after the motion poster or whatever we want to call it that dropped at the beginning of the week, where we got our first listen to a part of that musical piece. So we knew that the John Williams theme was being utilized.
You know, and I think if you're not a Snyder fan, the typical complaint was it's too dark, it's too gritty, it's too hard. It makes it too modern, and it's a little more cynical at times about what our culture is like. But if you look at the Christopher Reeve era, and you just went over all 4 of those movies, there is a camp still involved. There's a lightheartedness still involved. I think what's important is, an old student of mine reached out to me who I haven't talked to in months. Of course, was just like, and didn't even start with, "Hey, how are you?" Went like right into, they know what we're talking about right now. And Davis says, like, I think it's really interesting because it's still addressing the modern world, but in a different way. And it's not as maybe all the way to the right side of that. What I wrote back was, I think what's important about this trailer tone is there, to me, a little better representation of what hope looks like in a broken world.
I don't disagree with that. However, this was something that was really interesting to me. And for any new audience members, I'm a big fan of the Snyder films, and we talked about them one by one at the beginning of the year. I understand
and
the complaints.
So am I.
Yeah.
Man of Steel, I will stand by as an incredible movie.
Absolutely. And so I'm a fan of those films. I understand the critiques against them, but I am a fan of them. But it was just interesting to me watching this because, for example, he doesn't smile in this at all.
There are parallels.
Right. And like we said, the fact that you have the citizens turning against Superman as he's walking there behind him, and they're yelling, and one of them throws a can at his head. So it was just interesting to me because I would have expected more of a kind of pointed differentiation between the prior iteration and where we're going. And it was just always interesting to me that Gunn didn't go down that route. And also too, I feel like maybe for fans of the Snyder films or people who aren't as enamored with James Gunn, I think one of the fears and concerns going into this was it's going to be too humorous. There's no humor in this. Like, it was really, I was expecting a little button at the very end. Like at the very, very end, a little exchange between Clark and Jimmy or Superman and Jimmy, like something. No, I mean, you really played this straight. Fascinating choices.
So two things. I think what throws people a lot about the Snyderverse, it's not necessarily about always the content. To me, it's about the very, very clear choice of coloring and filming. I think there was a distinct grayer tone on a lot of what he approached filming with this. This is not the case in Gunn's movie so far. Like just from a lighting choice, the use of color, all the way down even to the suit in a lot of ways. It's a brighter looking primary color. It's not a dimmed blue and red. But I'm very curious. Even starting the trailer with Superman beat to hell. Like, this ain't like Superman's crash out of control, still okay. What on earth can bloody him that way?
Exactly.
That's what I kind of loved, that we don't know. All we saw were heroes, and we saw Lex Luthor. I think they're being very smart about, like, no, we're not going to show you all the cards. Come see the movie.
Exactly. We did see that kaiju that he fights at some point.
Yeah, but I think I wonder how primary that is, or if that's secondary. Because I do think, and there was somebody that broke it down, made a good point of, the kaiju's huge. Clearly there's like buildings falling, like there's dominoes happening. So there could be people pissed off at Superman just because of like collateral damage kind of stuff that we've talked about in even the previous universes. But I don't know if that's a real villain, and maybe that's just like hey, look, there's big things that happen in Metropolis that Superman's got to help take care of.
For sure. Yeah, there are definitely multiple contenders. We know we have Lex. We have more to say about him. We have this giant kaiju. We have this version of the Justice League in the form of Mr. Terrific, Guy Gardner, with that bowl cut, man.
It's on point, though, guys.
Yeah.
Like, that's on point. Like,
Hawk Girl, yeah. Metamorpho. So the sense that I've gotten, I guess less so from the trailer per se, and more just in terms of what we know / what's been speculated. It seems like Superman will be, at least for a portion of the film, in opposition to these other heroes. I suspect that the way they operate, the way they dispense justice, might be more might be more reckless or might be more ruthless or just
Yeah.
might play out in a way counter to Superman. And I would imagine at some point they'll ultimately come to terms, but it seems like that's
Yeah.
a theme that will be explored.
I'm so curious too. It's such an interesting choice of character. Because if you look at the slate, we have somebody from the JSA, the JLI, and the JLU. Like Hawkgirl is really, she came about mostly from the Justice League like cartoon. Most folks didn't focus on that. I think it's very, very specific as far as who he chose. Because if you think about it, it really hits different generations. Like if you started watching the Justice League cartoon, if you read JSA, if you read the Keith Giffen JLI, Justice League America stuff, there's kind of something for everyone. And some might go get really pissed off and be like, well, no, like I don't want a little of everything. Well, just shut up and you're gonna get to see Metamorpho. Just eat it. Like be okay. It's so interesting. Like I'm just so tired. I was already having to not look at comments because people are already getting salty. I'm like, you have no idea what you're talking about yet. Just enjoy this representation so far and be excited. You don't have to go in with high expectations. Just be excited.
I was going to save this for the end, but let me just say this now. And buttoning up what we were just saying a moment ago about the Snyder stuff, every time this week and previous to this, when there's been news about the Gunn Superman movie, hashtag Henry Cavill is Superman starts trending. And it's an interesting thing. I don't want to go too far down this road, but I'll just say is this, that my perspective as someone who has spent now many, many hours thinking and talking about all of this, I just think that all of us as Superman fans need to afford ourselves individually and each other just some grace and some understanding, and all kind of recognize that while we might each have our own favorite interpretation of the character, I certainly do myself, whether we're talking about the Triangle era comics or Smallville. Those are the two things I gravitate to more than anything. So I know what it's like to have our favorite, to recognize that this legend can be and has been spun in many different ways. There are a lot of different ways to interpret the character and his world. And with the Snyder stuff, we've talked about this so many times. I would never try to shove my opinion in anyone's face and say, oh, this is the only way you can tell the story. At the same time, I don't appreciate if someone tells me I'm wrong for liking it and that it's not a valid way to interpret the characters. I just think we want to afford each other grace. I don't love at all the way we got to this point in terms of how the studio handled the prior incarnation. It remains a bone of contention and a source of frustration. So I totally get that. At the same time, at this point, and I had this moment with myself, a while back where I'm like, it's time for a new chapter. And I think that a successful Superman movie next year is a win for everybody. And I don't see any scenario where this movie fails and the studio hands the reins back to the previous director. I don't see that happening. Is it possible that in success, in a DCU where Gunn has created this pathway for Elseworlds, that maybe at some point we could see Zack Snyder continue his version in an Elseworld? I don't know how likely that is, but I know in my gut, it's likelier than this movie failing and them going back to him. So I just think trying to move forward, trying to have fun with this, it's where I am. And I hope that people can kind of come around.
So there's two things I want to say about that. So I grew up a Yankees fan, right? All right. So I've always paid attention to the Yankees. The Yankees went to the World Series this year and lost. But what everybody needs to remember is that when the Yankees go to the World Series, Yankees merchandise gets sold a lot to a lot of people, even people that aren't fans. They want to know why everybody loves the Yankees and what's going on. Even when the Yankees lose, people are still going to wear and buy Yankees jerseys. Like, I think we need to remember that if the James Gunn movie does well, guess what's going to happen? People are going to go back and watch the Snyder movies too. Like, it's a win for everybody. It's a win for Superman Returns. It's a win for everything that is streaming. Because when you become a fan of something, as you and I both know, you do a deep dive and you go, ooh, what else is out there? And you want to get more merch. You want to get more content. The other thing I want to say is here's the thing that always hurts Superman or comic book properties. All right, ready? Star Wars. You're a Star Wars fan. You know why Star Wars fans are pissed off? Because there were Star Wars movies that were set content that everybody's comparing it to. There were 3 movies, then 6 movies, then 9 movies. And yeah, there were books and comic books, but that's the canon. That's what we're talking about. Now, there hasn't been a whole poop ton of interpretation of Star Wars. Star Wars is Star Wars. Harry Potter, there's books. We created these movies. Harry Potter is Harry Potter. Guess what, everybody? There's been 80 years of Superman content and characters and writers and story arcs and Elseworlds. And before we even came to the Christopher Reeve movies, there were already interpretations of Superman before those started. So it's natural for people to go, that's not what I know as my Superman. Yeah, because you were only reading comics for 10 years. But guess what? There were 40 years before that. When you read the Triangle era, that there was John Byrne stuff before the Triangle era. There was the Bronze Age. You're like, I don't know about this. Let me find out. You see what I'm getting at? People, like, we have to be okay with interpretation. And that's what our current culture does not do well with, because some of the properties they love, only one interpretation so far.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, we spent a lot of time this year on the notion of Clark Kent as Superboy to a whole generation of fans. That's a silly, absurd notion. To a whole other generation of fans, it was sacrilege that part of the character's history and mythology was discarded post-crisis. So different interpretations. And for any diehard Snyder fans listening to this, I mean, I can't ever post anything about the Snyder stuff without getting some snide comments, including from friends of mine who never pass up an opportunity to make those comments. So I get it. I get the frustration. And I also understand whether someone is just still holding on to the prior cinematic iteration, or is just not a James Gunn fan, or just has an open mind, but this isn't speaking to them. I totally get it. Like, you can't force yourself to like this stuff. But like I said, generally speaking, from all corners of the fandom, I just think some grace and some understanding towards each other would go a long way. So I'll get off my soapbox, but that's what I wanted to say.
I'm with you. I think the best parallel I can come up with is, I feel like some people that are really hurt about, I loved a lot of what was going on with Henry Cavill. I think he looked and acted a lot like Superman, but I feel like a lot of people are treating it like a really bad breakup, where it was like Henry Cavill or the DC Snyderverse is like an ex-girlfriend and you never think you'll date again. Like, guess what? You're going to date again. It's important. Get out there, see other people. And it doesn't dishonor your ex-girlfriend. Date another one. Like, I don't know what it is.
Yeah. Well, regardless of where anyone is in their fandom at this point in time, we're barreling towards this new movie. The rollout for this was interesting because for a while, there's been a lot of speculation about when a trailer for Superman 25 was going to drop.
Yeah.
I have to be honest. I've been very curious myself. I've been really anticipating this trailer, and in large part is because I'm a fan and I want to see what this movie is going to be. So I've been curious from a fan's point of view, but I've been equally, if not more curious from the podcasting perspective, because I'm like, when are we going to get to do our episode? I'm so looking forward to this. But for a while, I've been like, when is a trailer going to drop? And I'll be honest, I was getting a little frustrated. It's like, can you please just give us a window? Just so, I felt like it was getting to be a bit much. But then thankfully, early this week, we got that motion poster of this shot of Superman soaring and all the red and blue. And we heard the music. Look up. Yes, we got our tagline, look up. And then there was also a very, very short teaser video letting us know that the full teaser trailer was coming today. And then subsequent to that, the next day or the day after, we got a longer teaser for the teaser that really leaned into that whole look up angle. We got a shot at the Daily Planet newsroom, and we got to see a bunch of our core Daily Planet team. We got to see Lois and Jimmy and Kat Grant and Steve Lombard and Ron Troop. Was he there as well? I believe.
I think so.
And then we got to see all these crowd shots of people on the streets looking up. And then we got a couple really fleeting shots of Superman flying. So it was quite the buildup, but at least we knew that the trailer was coming and we were building towards something. So I did appreciate that. You mentioned the costume from that aesthetic, color point of view. So because we haven't talked about this on air, how do you feel about this Superman costume that we have for this movie?
I like, and again, listen, everybody, just our thoughts. And it's I will still stand by interpretation. I'm still allowed to have opinions, but I'm not going to be snarky about anything. I don't love the S. I'm still working on that. Yeah,
it's not an S,
and that's kind of, the symbol has been the symbol for a long time, and I guess no matter what iteration, it's been pretty darn close to whatever the Kryptonian symbol has been. This one seems a little bit too close to Kingdom Come vibe, and I don't know why. And maybe that'll be explained. I don't know, because we also, what I kind of like, everybody, is that we're not doing an origin story. We're kind of starting somewhere a few years in, maybe, or we don't really know yet. And I'm sure we'll find out. But first inclination is I like the costume. I like that it's not super tight. Actually, I don't know. Some people love it, like they see like every ripple, but I don't know. I kind of like the look of the suit, especially the coloring, but I'm just not a huge fan of the S. And maybe I'll learn more about why that choice was made.
Right on. I said this when we did our costume breakdown, when Gunn released that first official photo of Superman putting his boots on. By the way, I stand by everything I said in that segment. I still do not think that was the best first image to release. Do you know what I think would have been a vastly better image to release first? The one that came later of Superman and Krypto looking at the world. Because that to me, and very reminiscent of All-Star Superman, which Gunn has cited as a heavy influence. Yes. And that to me conjures more of what it appears the spirit is going to be. So I stand by everything I said about that. The thing with the costume, still, in my heart, I would have preferred if they picked a costume, regardless of which one, the classic, the Fleischer, the Kingdom Come, the New 52, whatever. You pick a costume and you just do that costume. As opposed to this, which, not unlike the movie itself, it seems, is pulling in all of these different elements. So you've got the collar, that's kind of like the New 52, and more of the lines. Yeah, you've got the yellow S on the back, very classic. You've got the red trunks, of course, which apparently David Cornsweet was an advocate for, which was very interesting. Yeah. Yet you have the Kingdom Come S, yet there's the yellow background instead of the black. So it's a lot of different elements being pulled in. That's a choice, and that's fine. Is it the choice I would have made? No, but it's not my movie, so it's fine. It looks enough like a Superman costume. And I will say, because I was getting a little worried when all those set photos were coming out. And there too, people were really high on those in terms of what I was seeing online. Once more, it was, let him cook, we're feasting, this is the best. I'm like, all right, I don't really see it, but okay. To me, it does look better in action in the actual film. And that's why I was trying to withhold judgment before, because I'm like, I can't just base this on these set photos. Like, let's see what it actually looks like. And my favorite costume in the world? No, but it's solid. It works, and definitely better on screen than it looked in those set photos, to me at least.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite scenes, though, of the trailer, and I think it's a very well done combination of CGI, practical effects, and legit just camera work, is when he saves that girl.
Yeah.
Like when that explosion happens, that's impressive. Like that, if that is telling us what the CGI is going to look like in this movie, hang on tight, everybody. Like, that's going to be pretty impressive.
That was certainly a standout. So as we go more specifically through this trailer, we don't have to go shot by shot per se, but we might end up hitting on everything, even if it's just a brief mention. But like you said, we start on Superman crashing into the Arctic. And as we've been saying, he's beaten, he's bloodied, he's spitting up blood. The wheezing in that opening shot, I'll be honest, but as I was watching it for that first time,
uncomfortable.
I was like, this is a little bit much. This is a little bit much.
Uncomfortable.
But then a few moments later, when that transitions into him whistling for Krypto, I was like, oh man, what a payoff.
When that happens, I was so excited, because like, and like, even if we didn't see Crypto in the teaser poster or that photo, there's only one reason he would ever whistle. And I was, oh my gosh. And you see like the cloud of snow. And I couldn't not get excited about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the fact that those are among the only words spoken in the trailer, but when it's like, Crypto,
Yes.
home, take me home. I just this sounds so nitpicky. If it had been take us home, I wouldn't have been opposed to that, but take me home. What do you think he means by take me home? We going to the fortress?
I don't know. Because, I mean, he's clearly Crypto's dragging him at first.
Yeah.
So I don't know how long he can do that. I don't know how strong Crypto is. Can he really take him back to Metropolis?
I guess we'll find out.
That's an interesting interpretation too, because we don't really.
Is it his apartment in the city? Is it the farm? Is it the fortress?
Exactly right. And that's gonna tell us where we are in this point of Superman's life. What does he consider as home?
Yeah. Yeah, very interesting. But it's just starting on a beaten Superman, whether this is a Superman with a more modest power level or a fully souped up version, yet the threat he faces is just so formidable that it's enough to take him down. But either way, look, as Superman fans, we have encountered this criticism in some way, shape, or form throughout our fan journeys of, oh, Superman's not interesting. He's too strong. You can't come up with credible threats. So I think that was a very, very specific choice to open like that, to show like, no, this is a Superman who can get beaten and bloodied. Nothing's a given per se. And these are the kinds of challenges he's going to face. So I thought that it worked for, I think, what I assume the intention was.
Agreed. So we get through Crypto. Crypto's taking him. We then start to see kind of flashes of Metropolis, the characters of Metropolis. We see Lex Luthor for the first time. I'm very interested. I like Nicholas Hoult a lot, actually, in general, and things I've seen him in. And at first I'm going like, okay. And when I saw him bald, I was like, all right. And now when I see him, I'm very interested to see what's going to happen.
He looked effing great. I mean, he looked like such a badass in those couple of shots.
And the building,
and
the way they're doing it, and the way it's two buildings, and his office is like in the middle of it. It's just so interesting to me.
Yeah, but he looked great. There's a physicality that he brings, and I think a level of intimidation. Now, look, you were just here a week ago and we talked about the fourth and final season of Superman and Lois. And there too was a very physical, intense, intimidating Lex Luthor. As I felt, and when we had that discussion, I didn't feel like there were enough different angles to that character. So I'm hoping that there's a little bit more going on here with this Lex, but just from a visual standpoint, I mean, I thought he looked great. He really stood out, and he's just got the size. Like there's a presence there.
Agreed. And it's interesting. I feel like directors like James Gunn are very particular, and I think he's being very choosy as to what he's showing in the trailer.
As he should.
And I'm very curious, why is Lex holding a gun? And somebody made a very interesting comment in a reaction video. They're like, is there a kryptonite bullet in that gun? Like what in a Superman movie, what's a gun gonna do?
I know.
So the question is, like, what's going on here? Like, and what do we know? And is Lex the threat? And maybe the gun is a what's it called? Like it's almost trying to mislead us.
Oh, a red herring?
Yeah, like I don't know. Or is it a scene where he's threatening someone else?
Or he holds it up and he's like, "You were right about me all along. I am the villain of the story." I mean, we know James Gunn is a big fan of Rosenbaum's interpretation of Lex. So
they're friends. Yeah.
It broke my heart though. So more has been coming out from Gunn himself, because there were a bunch of journalists who did a set visit a while back, and now they're publishing all their reports. And then, of course, earlier this week, there was the press event on the Warner Brothers lot to show off the trailer to the press. And he gave quotes there. So more has been coming out. And he said that in this iteration, Lex hates Superman, but they don't know each other personally. Which is fine. And I wasn't necessarily expecting a backstory between Clark and Lex. And it could be that he chose his words very carefully in that response. And maybe Clark and Lex do have a backstory. I doubt that's the case. It's funny because when I posted something to that effect online, and a buddy of mine responded and essentially said, like, well, there have been all these different kinds of interpretations. They're not always, friends in the past. My response was, yeah, of course, but they're almost never friends in the past. I mean, when we look at all of these multimedia adaptations, with the exception of Smallville, and yes, that's a huge one, but with the exception of that, virtually all of the other ones, Super Friends did a flashback episode, and they were, it was right out of the Silver Age comics. But for the most part, we never get to see this. So when there's an opportunity, I do kind of look for that. But other moments in this trailer. So even before Crypto shows up, the flashes start to other scenes, and we see Clark walking through the streets of Metropolis into the Daily Planet building, and he's very tall, like he really towers above the other people on the street, and you see that clumsiness. There's no sound, we only hear the music, but you hear, you can tell he's like saying excuse me. It's like bumping into people.
Guys, like, dude, his affect and his hair length looks directly out of Birthright.
Oh, Birthright? I was thinking All-Star.
Oh no, there's some scenes in Birthright too. The length of his hair is very bushy, and it's just very interesting. Like the glasses are even, like the way the hair is bushy, and it sits right on top of the glasses. There's not a lot of forehead. There's not a lot, like it just harkens back to very, very specific artist renditions of Clark in that. I loved it.
Is there any way that David Corenswet has the same amount of hair on his head in the Clark scenes as he does in the Superman scenes?
I don't know.
Maybe it really is just comes down to styling, but I don't know.
Listen, I know this is going to sound totally weird because again, you're around people enough. One of my students today, it was like clearly just like the last day before the semester was done. He's one of two twin brothers. His other brother, his twin, has longer hair, and he typically kind of does product in his hair. And this morning, he didn't do any product, and he looked almost like his other brother, and his hair looked really thick. But so that kind of reminds me, it's like, well, like in the Superman, if you look at the scenes of Superman, it's a little more slicked, and then Clark is very bushy. So maybe that's part of the identity.
Fair. This is not the hill I'm going to die on, but I hope it's just, I hope it's just a styling thing. I don't know why this means so much to me, but if there's a little bit of cheating here with like adding some extra hair, I don't like that so much, but if it's really just a styling thing, but
there's a weave.
There's all sorts of stuff they could do that would be, subtle. They wouldn't anyway, but yeah. But just in terms of, his size and the way he carries himself, there's kind of this, we don't see much, but almost like a lumbering aspect as he's walking into the building. To me, it was very, your point is well taken about Birthright. To me, it's very reminiscent of All-Star, where he's really just, and For All Seasons as well. I think Tim Sale and Frank Quitely both kind of hit on something similar with their Clark, where he is just kind of like towering over everyone and looks and feels out of place, this country kid in the big city. So what I would love, we don't get any instance of this in the trailer, but I do hope that it follows that All-Star model. And we actually talked about a couple of instances in the Christopher Reeve movies where you see this at play as well, where to whatever extent he is bumbling or clumsy or knocking into things, that he's doing it as a cover to help someone or actually do something. I hope that that's the angle that they take, because I think that's effective. And then we do see some looks between Lois and Clark. I mean, what was your read on that? Because it looked like she's curious about him, and he kind of looks back. I don't get the sense that they are involved at that point in the story, or that she knows a secret or anything like that. It seems more of like this, she's intrigued by him, perhaps. Whether she suspects or not, I don't know. But that was kind of my gut reaction to that initial.
I think they did a really nice job showing us the characters, but still keeping a lot of mystery. I just from a sheer looking at who she is and her affect, I think Rachel's a great choice for Lois. It's going to be really interesting.
Here's the thing, man.
But I don't know.
So
I just don't know. I don't know what to say about that, because I think they're very, very choosy as to what they're showing us right now.
Yeah, that's another aspect of all of this, where And in fact, prior to sitting down to record, I was just scrolling through social media, and apparently there's a theatrical version of this trailer that is going to play before Mufasa, which we're actually going to take our son to see this weekend. And there are a couple of different shots. There's another shot of Mr. Terrific. There's another shot of Lex in, I don't know if it's a parka or something along those lines, and glasses. Okay. So even already there are other versions, and we'll get a full trailer and all that. And part of me wishes we wouldn't, right? Like, I don't want to go in knowing everything. And so certainly, yes, everything is very purposeful in terms of what they show and what they hold back. And we can only kind of glean or predict so much. So absolutely. But to your point about Rachel Brosnahan, I'm a fan of the casting for all the characters, generally speaking, but hers in particular. I think most fans probably would agree we've had the better Loises on the small screen in terms of Phyllis Coates and Terry Hatcher and Erica Durance and Bitsy Tulloch. Yeah. And on the big screen, look, I talked about it very recently, not the biggest fan of Margot Kidder, especially as the series progresses, but I know certainly she has her fans and worked in that context. A lot has been said about Kate Bosworth. I don't think she was right for that role. Even Amy Adams in the Snyderverse. I liked her in the investigative reporter mode, but I never really fully kind of bought into their dynamic totally.
Agreed.
I think with Rachel Brosnahan, I think we haven't heard her speak yet in the role, but I feel like we might have a contender soon for kind of like best big screen Lois. So I'm really, really optimistic for her. I like her in this a lot. So we'll see.
Yeah.
So anyway, we have, again, these kind of flashes back and forth. And early on as well, there is Clark and Jonathan on the porch of the farm.
Something's going on. Like, it's so interesting. I'm curious what they're talking about. There's been speculation about where's Ma. Like,
yes. Yeah, one of our audience members, Christopher McKenzie, he was very concerned. He commented on one of our posts, and he's like, where's Martha? Like I said, I watched this trailer a bunch of times. I was pausing and I was zooming in. Unless I'm totally mistaken, and I don't think I am, because I really tried to zoom in as much as I could. Before we get to Clark and Jonathan on the porch, there's a wide shot from far back of the farm, and it's just Clark. So I don't know if Clark is just sitting there and then Jonathan comes out and sits down, or if we're kind of dealing with time passing, right? Like, my read on the scene between Clark and Jonathan of Clark kind of putting his arms around him and he looks very concerned. My read on it was that Pa is sick, and that's news that he's delivered, and Clark is coming to terms with it. My instinct is not that Martha is sick or dying or dead. It really seemed to be concern for Jonathan. And I know James Gunn has talked about how the loss of his own father not too long ago was a big driving force for him as he was writing the screenplay for this. Now, he could kind of transpose his own experience onto Martha, right? And we had a very recent instance of that with Superman and Lois, of Martha's death being this catalyst for the character. So it could go any direction, but my read on it, unlike other iterations where Jonathan's clutched his arm and gone down with a heart attack, I think this might be a version of the story where Jonathan is sick, and that's what they're dealing with. That was my gut reaction to that.
And it just, so my first reaction to it before that reaction thing I saw, if I was sitting next to my dad and he was expressing worry for me, I would probably I would probably approach it the way we see Clark approaching Jonathan. Like, if you come from it from Jonathan, like, son, I'm worried. Like, I care for you. I love you. I know you've got these powers, but I'm worried about you. I could see Clark saying, Dad, it's okay. I've got this. I can do this. That's another interpretation that we could be, that's not seeing or knowing.
Dude, I'm on board with that. I mean, I to be clear, and you know this, and the audience knows this, I'm not a proponent of either or both of the Kents dying. I would love if both of them stick around into Clark's adulthood and they're there as a sounding board for him. I would love nothing more. I hope your prediction proves true. I guess just based on what we've seen in the past and Gunn's comments about his own father, it's like, I assume one or both of the Kents' days are numbered, but yeah, we'll find out. Regardless of whether they live or die or whatnot, one angle that I really hope comes into play, and since All-Star Superman is such a big influence, I think there's a decent chance of it, in All Star, when Clark is giving the eulogy, he's talking about Pa, and he's like, he taught me that the strong have to stand up for the weak, and that bullies don't like it when you stand up to them. And I know that idea played into Morrison's action run with flashbacks and stuff like that. I want that idea to be a force in this movie of like Clark stands up to bullies, whether it's Steve Lombard at the Planet or Guy Gardner in his superhero role. But it's just like he stands up to bullies, and he learned that from Pop. Like I would love that to be a force in this. I think that'd be good.
I would love that. I would love the audience to see that. I would like it if the movie's going to send messages besides hope. I think it needs to send things like that stand up for what you know is right and righteous and what is good in the world, and don't let evil or cynicism take over. Like I think I would love to see that. Standing up to bullies is a thing that every age person can understand.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So fingers crossed on that front. I mentioned Steve Lombard. So we're mostly
playing Steve Lombard?
Beck Bennett from SNL.
That's right. Okay.
So in this teaser trailer, mostly we see Lois in the newsroom, but in that teaser for the teaser, we got the shot of the Daily Planet staff, and I'm very excited. The actor playing Jimmy, I've talked about this before. He was on Santa Clarita Diet on Netflix with Timothy Olyphant and Drew Barrymore, which was great, and he was so funny in that. So I'm excited for him to be here. I love the Daily Planet crew. I'm glad they're there. I hope they get a good amount of play. What did you think of Cat Grant's wig in that first teaser?
It seemed a little much. I'll be honest. Like I was really also enjoying just the look of the Daily Planet newsroom.
Yeah.
Like it again. I feel there's something about a happy medium that I'm noticing that it looks modern, but it doesn't look like fully. Well, it's just all tech now. It's all just devices and iPads, and I know it's still it's got desks. It's very open and big and boomy, and I think I'm excited about that vibe again. I like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The thing with the wig is the actress Michaela Hoover, stunningly beautiful. So I don't know that she's done a ton, but like stunningly beautiful. I mean, I would have been okay with a brunette Cat Grant for like it's okay.
Yeah.
But it's fine. I'm glad that the character is there, curious curious to see more. So from the farm, we go to finally the whistle and Crypto running there and the Take Me Home. Which I mean, look, the fact that Crypto is in it at all, I think really kind of gives you a sense of what we're playing around with. And Gunn did the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast with Josh Horowitz not too long ago, and Horowitz asked him what is it about this that's new that like you're excited for people to see? And Gunn's, I think that one of the first things he came to was that Silver Agey sci-fi feel. And so, and I've said this before, like what I want to see in this movie is like stuff we've never seen before in live action. Yeah. Like, so Crypto, that's great. Did they do Crypto, a superpowered Crypto in Titans? I don't even remember. I never watched it, so I don't know.
I've never finished Titans. I only watched the first 2 seasons.
But at least on the big screen, right? Like, so to see Crypto, I mean, we only saw what appeared to be a very fleeting glimpse of the fortress at one point, and it looked like the typical crystal motif.
Yeah.
But I would love to see like a Silver Agey with a giant key and everything fortress, just because it's like different. Like we haven't seen that. So the fact that we have Crypto, I think bodes well for that, but that's kind of a future hope.
Well, we're supposed to get, I thought a Supergirl came too.
Yeah, well, she's getting her own movie. I mean, I think it's heavily rumored that she's going to make a cameo in this. I would be surprised if we don't see her at all.
Yeah. I'm very hesitant. Part of me wants to actually not watch another trailer until the movie.
Yeah.
I know that sounds so like, I don't know. I guess get worried that I don't want to see too much. I think it does set expectations off for me. I used to love trailers from the 90s that didn't show much. And then you go in like, whoa, this is amazing. And it's not what you'd expect. So I kind of feel like I got a really nice appetizer from this. And like, I'm going to go. Like, I think I'm going to let it be. I'm not going to watch another one.
What? Really?
I'm not going to do it.
All right. Hey, listen, if you can hold out, I commend you.
Yeah, you can watch it. You can watch it and be like, Bernie, what are you doing, Bernie?
Anyway, after Crypto drags him off, that's where the music kicks in even more, and then the pace picks up. But that's where we have the moment of him saving the little girl, which again, really just to see him putting himself between her and danger and shield her like that, was really something. Then we see those shots of Lex that we talked about, where it really just looks terrific. It's Luthor Corp instead of Lex Corp, which is fine. I can live with that. I would have preferred Lex, but that's okay. We get Superman punching out of the glass cage.
I'm curious what that is, though. Again, so I feel like that looks very climactic. So clearly, there's some reason he's in there. So I'm curious. Again, it's great. It's just great movement shots.
So then we go to, what is this? Barovia, I believe, is the name of the country that's given. It seems like we're in the realm of some sort of geopolitical conflict. Right.
Yeah.
Where we see this war-torn area and this little boy raising the flag with the S. And the only other instance of dialogue in this where Superman.
Yeah.
And that leads,
and you hear it later too. You hear it like when he's pushing the wall, like you hear Superman. Like, and I'm like, oh, okay. Like I got chills during that section.
Yeah, I mean, here's where, so we have this little sequence here of the little boy lifting the flag, and then Superman walking through the streets with everyone yelling at him and pelting him, and then he's in the lobby of Stag Industries and looking really pensive. Yes. So once more, all we're doing is speculating at this point. It could be a misdirect, but
scenes,
But I would imagine that Superman's involvement in this conflict, whether the fact that he intervenes at all or doesn't, or the way he intervenes, that causes some source of tension here. So, I'm interested to see how that plays out. I mean, the crowd reaction and the pelting, I really wasn't expecting to see that in this version, but not to be cynical, but just knowing this world that we're in, it tracks. So, I'm curious to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I expect to see that in a Superman really now. If we're writing a Superman movie that takes place in our world, I mean, look at how people respond to a social media post.
That's the thing. I don't think there's no person or event or thing where everyone is going to have the same reaction. So the fact that
Jesus Christ himself could come back and someone would be like, those are the sandals you chose to wear. Like I just feel that there's gonna be complaints no matter what. But in this case, it looks angry. I mean, you'd be pretty pissed off if a building fell on your car. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and you see when he gets hit with that can, obviously it doesn't physically hurt him, but you see he registers that and it weighs on him. Yeah, it hurts him emotionally, and just to kind of see that pensive stance of his in the lobby as Guy Gardner walks in. I didn't mind the bowl cut either. Like, this guy's a douche, and so the fact that he would have kind of like a awful haircut is like, it's fine.
Well, and it's interesting if you watch that scene too. There's confusion a little bit if you watch it fast about like, wait, what's Guy doing? He's using his ring, but if you watch it slow, he's creating a force field around the windows. He's either like darkening it so they can have a meeting and talk. I love the way that the teaser does exactly what it's called. It's literally teasing you because you don't know. You don't know the story arc. You don't know the big beats of the movie, but it's showing you like, we're going to show you cool shit in this movie, guys. Like, come in ready to see stuff you haven't seen yet. And that's what I get excited. Sorry, I just made a PG-13.
No, that's all right. Quite all right. The thing with this corporate sponsored superhero team of Guy and Terrific and Hulk, I don't think that they're the quote unquote villains or primary antagonists of the film. I just think that there will be some conflict in terms of how they achieve results. But yeah, Guy and Mr. Terrific enter. I agree with you. Yeah, he's quote unquote blasting or aiming his beam at the window. We got a shot of Hawkgirl in flight. We see that kaiju monster, which to me was very reminiscent of the Superman Man of Tomorrow animated movie that kicked off the Tomorrowverse line of films where Parasite grows, right? It becomes this monstrous creature. So it definitely had kind of shades of that.
I will say that I have I've never been impressed with TV, especially because we've seen Mr. Terrific, we've seen Hawkgirl, um, in iterations, and I've never loved the way they created the look. This looks right to me. Like Mr. Terrific looks good, and it just seems just man, I that's what I'm excited about because the renditioning to me looks solid. So now I'm like, now okay, tell me more. What's going to go on?
Yeah, right on. If one thing is clear in this discussion, like, Bernie is sufficiently teased
Yeah,
by this. By
you
this
got
trailer. He is as
you got
teased as
me.
someone can be.
You got me. You're gonna get all my money to watch this movie a number of times.
You hear
I'm
that?
gonna take yeah, I'm gonna take Anthony and Justin out to go see this movie in July, and then we're gonna talk about it right after.
Timothy Gunn, you have teased a sweet, sweet Bernie here as much as someone
Yes,
can be.
yes,
He's good to go, which is, I mean,
yes,
that's it. That's what it's supposed to do. All right.
yes.
So we're barreling towards the climax of our trailer here. And we have Lois and Clark in the apartment, or what appears to be the apartment, right? At night with the lights, that purple orb or light
Well,
show.
what is yeah, is it an eye? What is it? Yeah.
But that's what was in the background of that first official shot of
Yes.
him putting the boots
Right.
on. And you know what? Not for anything, but I remember at the time when we did our segment on that, and I talked about how one of my problems with that image was it didn't look like Superman was moving with the sense of urgency that you would expect if this was going on behind him. And there was at least one person who wrote and was like, well, that's something to the effect of like, that's not necessarily a scene in the movie. Like, it's just a photo. It's not just a photo. It's in the movie.
End of the movie.
Justified. And then we get this kitchen kiss between a Clark
Yeah.
without glasses, right? He's Clark. He's not in the Superman costume, and Lois. So it seems like I assume over the course of the movie she learns the secret. So I think we'll spend some time where she doesn't know, and then either she discovers it or he tells her. That's my reaction, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I love and also the token, a classic like floating midair, like hug and kiss. It's like, yeah, it looks good. It looks right, I guess, to me. That's the thing.
Yeah, right.
It looks natural. It doesn't look weird. Like like honestly, as much as I like Brandon Routh, like him and Kate Bosworth doing that was awkward. It felt weird. This seems right.
Some episode that we did when I talked about my hopes for this movie, one of the things was some heat, some chemistry
Yeah.
between them, like we've seen on the small screen, and we just get a fleeting glimpse of it here. But I think it's there. Then there's a shot of Superman holding a robot and looking very
Yeah.
upset. Helix?
I think it's Kellex, yeah. Well, and the question is too, we don't yet know based on this universe how much of Krypton exists in the fortress. Like it is like if you think about Silver Age, there wasn't a lot of like Jor-El Kara or Jor-El Lara around rather. It was just the robots and or like that kind of mad. Like so what if something happened to that robot? That's a semblance of his past that might be gone. He looked just legitimately sad. And maybe it's a misdirect. We don't know who that is, but it looked like a robot in the fortress.
I know it was a very surprising choice of like, oh, he's looking really
Yeah.
upset.
Yeah.
So yeah, it could be that's his connection to the past. Certainly in pre-crisis continuity, Superman had an army of Superman robots.
Right.
That doesn't seem to be the case here, but yeah, that was particularly intriguing. We get the shot, as I mentioned before, of sort of the ice crystals of the fortress. I mean, if that's what it is, and they're kind of hewing to that, the classic Donner, visual style for it's fine.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have minded moving in a different direction, but I guess we'll see. There's what appears to be a shot of Metamorpho. It's very quick. I've said before,
Yeah.
not the biggest Metamorpho fan, but I love Anthony Carrigan who's playing him. So keep an
Agreed.
open mind.
Yeah. And it was very quick and I had to like go back and go, oh, that's right. Metamorpho's in this. I didn't put that together right away. And I thought, is that a villain that we don't know about? And then I saw.
Yeah. So we get some more quick cuts. There's another shot of Lex and he looks all cut up. So been in some
Yeah.
sort of tussle there. More of Crypto dragging him. And then there's a skirmish between Superman and another figure in the field, in the baseball field or football field. That I believe is Ultraman.
Oh, to me, it actually looked like Mr. Terrific.
It looked like Mr. Terrific. I don't think it is. I don't know for sure.
Do you think it's Ultraman, really?
Well,
do you think it's Earth 2?
Well, so there were all those set photos a while back, and there was a character with a U on his chest who looked like Black Noir from The Boys. Like he didn't look like Ultraman from the comics, but he was just head to toe in black with the U. And
interesting.
The way they're fighting, right? Like he's charging at Superman. I'm almost positive that it's Ultraman. I could be. My first watch, I was like, oh, it's Mr. Terrific. They're fighting.
Yeah.
I think it's Ultraman, but time will tell.
Yeah, I don't know.
But speaking of Mr. Terrific,
oh, go ahead.
No, go.
I was going to ask you if anybody wrote questions. I know you put out a call out. Did anybody have any questions?
Well, we have. We have a bunch of reactions. Time permitting, I'll get to them. But I just want to get through the last few shots of this. But because speaking of Mr. Terrific, we do have a shot of him in Barovia, right? That's the country, and it looks like he's putting a force field around Lois. Is what it looks like, and there are all these people shooting at them, and it looks like they're in Luthor Corp type armor. So I'm assuming Lex has an interest in this international conflict and he's manipulating events. But that's kind of what that looked like. We get that shot of Superman and Lois flying and kissing, like you mentioned. The shot from the teaser of Superman shooting up into the sky, which is great. And then we end on Superman and Lois, right, in the apartment. And she holds his hand and they hug, and it really has this foreboding sense that he's going off to face something and they don't know how it's going to turn out. So, and that's our trailer. And then interspersed with all of this, we have the text of, from James Gunn, director of the Guardians trilogy. It begins July 11th, all that stuff. So, and no button, no little tag at the end of it, which is okay.
I do love, again, this is my opinion. I love the DC bullet being back. The DC logo looking back like the original DC that we knew for so many decades. I love it.
Oh yeah, I'm happy to have that as well. Yeah. So anything, while I queue up some of our audience comments, and I can't go through all of them. There's so many. You know how many we had? We had enough that Meta AI generated a summary.
Oh,
so that's how you know you had a bunch. So in our Digging for Kryptonite, a Superman fan group, which you're all welcome to join, we're closing in on 700 members. So come and join us.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
But so the AI summary is commenters share mixed reactions to the trailer, praising visuals, Crypto, and Lex Luthor's appearance, while criticizing musical choices and dialogue absence. Some express excitement and optimism, while others worry about character introductions and faithful adaptation. So while I queue up individual ones, anything else that we haven't talked about yet that you want to?
No, man, I don't think so. I know Bernie has been properly teased, but it's only given me excitement. There have been other movies in the past where it's like, ugh, not sure where this is going to go. And I haven't had the same excitement, but this one gives me a lot of hope.
I would say in our group, the summary aside, I feel like the prevailing sentiment was one of optimism and positivity. There were some with some concerns, which I do get. So Jared Kilborn said the guitar riff of the theme, Double Hearts. Our buddy JJ said this is absolutely stunning, and he would know. He's the one, by the way, who called me the Silver Fox. So he said this was stunning. Our pal Perry Constantine, he said, I never thought I'd get pumped for Crypto.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, this was one that was more mixed from our pal Luke, who says, honestly, meh. Gives me Man of Steel meets Superman Returns vibes. And having an entire trailer where virtually no one speaks or gives you any kind of glimpse into how the actors are playing their characters leaves me wanting. And I still feel this is too Donnery. So there you go. So it doesn't work for everybody. Let's see. Miha says, I'm beyond excited for this film. Kenny says, super great first trailer. Our pal Tim Bruns, just a flurry of starry eye and fire emojis. So happy right now. Our pal Ralph Puma, it's perfect. It's perfect. Huh. I love Ralph. I wouldn't go that far. But though, you know what's funny?
Yeah.
I was thinking about, because I saw his comment, I was thinking about it, and I was like, it's not, I wouldn't say it's perfect yet.
Yeah.
I don't have many notes. It's like, yes, I would have liked a little more dialogue or a little button, but there's not much where I'm like, oh, this doesn't work. They should have done this. They should have done it. Maybe I still can't say it's perfect, but maybe he's not too far off.
I don't want to poo-poo on the lack of dialogue comments, but guys, what kind of dialogue do you want? Because ultimately, you have to be very careful, because the dialogue can, if you don't choose well, it can mislead you. Things are going to be taken out of context. They're not going to share a ton. I would rather have glimpses and tone and coloring and characterization, and here's what you're going to see in this movie. Come to the movie and we'll tell you the story. Like, I don't know. So I guess I'm not really upset about no dialogue. I think that's exactly what a teaser trailer should be.
I'm not upset. I do get the desire to hear like something, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Bruce says, I cannot wait. Let's see. AP here says, we're back. Mark says, loved it. I'm in. # look up. Then Christopher McKenzie, who I was mentioning before, he said, not exactly what I was expecting, but I loved it. Everything looked great, except possibly for Nathan Fillion's wig. I've already watched it 3 times, loved seeing a moment in Smallville, but now I'm worried that we didn't see Martha. And it looks like he's bending down to help an injured robot in the fortress. Love the Silver Age vibes. Let's see. CJ says everything looks right. Gunn seems like he knows the character. John says, not my Superman. Just kidding. Looks like a lot of fun. It looks like a fun, wild ride. I'm here for all of it. Matthew says, visuals and colors are great. I'm mixed on the musical choice for this and the lack of dialogue. It is a teaser, so you can't expect too much, but I was hoping this would get me more excited, and unfortunately it didn't quite do that. I'm still looking forward to it, though. Javi says, far more than I expected to see in this trailer. Not only am I not disappointed, I'm over the moon in love. Aiton says, looks great, go crypto. I'd also like to see the Bottle City of Kandor, the giant key to the fortress, and Mixus Pitalik. I mean, I could do without Mixie, but yeah, man, give me that key, give me the Bottle City. Like I want to get a little weird here with this, like the Silver Age stuff.
Well, I kind of want to see the All-Star Superman lab. I kind of want to see that kind of stuff too.
I know. I still am not. I love All Star, and my love for it has grown.
No,
so much,
I know you don't love the super
science.
smart Matthew Superman. You don't love it, yeah. You know, I didn't notice. Did anybody say that they missed slow motion? I didn't know if anybody mentioned.
I think it's about time to wrap this up. All right. Those are fighting words. All right. And then, so another mixed one though. So Eric Noriega says, so I really like this is interesting. He goes, I really liked the teaser for the teaser. It had that whole look up vibe. This trailer really didn't do it for me. As much as I love the John Williams score, are they really going to use it again? The trailer also seemed busy. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to be there the day it opens and I still have high hopes, but this trailer just didn't do it for me. So again, I'm glad we got this mix because not everybody's over the moon about it, and I like to kind of represent those different perspectives. Yeah. I mentioned that there were these quotes from Gunn that have come forth from the set visit and from the recent press event. So there's just a couple quick things that I want to mention. Let's see. We said we just start in the middle of the action, and this points to what you were saying earlier. Like, it's not an origin story. We're just going to get right into it. And then there's that line that I mentioned before about Lex hates Superman's guts from the beginning, although they don't know each other personally. So we have that. And then you saw this quote about how David Cornsweet convinced him about the trunks. What did you think of that?
Yeah. It's interesting to me. Like, I go back and forth with the trunks, to be perfectly honest. Because I've seen them both ways, and I don't like dislike it either way. But when the trunks aren't on, or the red in that isn't on, it does seem empty for some reason to me. I'm not saying I don't like. Oh, how can you not have trunks? But maybe there was just something that Cornsweet was like, yeah, I think it looks like it's missing something.
Well, it's deeper than that, which I thought was like really interesting. So this
I don't know about it.
This is a quote from Gunn. One of the things David said is that Superman wants kids to not be afraid of him. He's an alien. He's got these incredible powers. He shoots beams out of his eyes. He's this incredibly powerful, could be considered scary individual, and he wants people to like him. He wants to be a symbol of hope and positivity. So he dresses like a professional wrestler. He dresses in a way that makes people unafraid of him, that shows that hope and that positivity. And that really clicked in for me.
Huh.
So I thought that was fascinating. And then on the
You
Lois
know,
and Clark, go ahead.
I was just going to say something I do appreciate about Gunn has been very vocal about his care for the character. I feel like the guy's done his homework too. He's not like, well, I've done these movies and I've done superhero stuff, so I'll be okay. No, I really think it's clear he understands the character and has done a lot of work. So I, I'm not saying I'm fully like giving the keys to the kingdom over, but I'm saying like, hey, let's trust the guy because clearly he cares about it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I do get the sense that this is well intentioned. He has the love for the
Yeah.
character, whether they were stories he already knew, or stories he went back to reread, or stories he explored for the first time. Like he
Right.
cited a bunch of different comic books. I mean, All Star is the most predominant one that he's talked about, but
Yeah.
it really seems like he's been diving into the mythology. So yeah, in
Yeah.
terms of intention, I don't really have any kind of concerns, on that front. It seems like this is a heartfelt endeavor for him, and that he has the care for the character. That's what's coming across, and I hope that's true. On Lois and Clark, he said, "I don't think it's something we've ever seen in any superhero movie ever with respect to their relationship." So I'm very curious as to what that means. And then this was the quote, though, that I loved. Like, this really made a big impression on me. Gunn said, "It's not just Clark. It's not just Superman. It's Clark / Superman.
Yep.
And the only people that know Clark Superman are his mom and his dad and a few others who know who he is. And those are very different things. People say all sorts of different things. They say Clark's the real one. They say Superman's the real one and Clark's the secret identity. But I don't. And it says it in my script on the second page. I don't believe either of those things. I don't think anybody knows Superman unless they know both of him. And when they know both of him, they know the real guy." I've been saying this for years. It's like Clark on the farm.
It's not
That's
one
the
or
guy.
the other. Yeah, it's so interesting. I am laughing because I'm looking at the time, and we've been talking an hour and 20 minutes about a 2-minute and 20-second. What is going to happen when this movie comes out, bro?
It might be multiple episodes. I don't know. The fact that we kept this under an hour and a half, I think we did great. But
I did tell Renee. Renee's like, "What do you think? It'll be like a half an hour." I said, "Yeah, I'm not going to promise that."
Well, there's always a lot to say, and I think obviously there's been a lot of interest in this. I hope people enjoy the conversation, and audience, whatever we didn't talk about, please let me know. We tried to be as thorough as possible, but I was so happy to have you here. I always enjoy our conversations, and in particular, man, you really took one for the team when you watched all those Crisis animated movies not too long ago. So not that this is your reward per se, but like you really took one for the team.
Somebody else said that too. I was dying.
Yeah, one of our patrons, Brian Dempsey, he emailed me. He's like, "I hope you give Bernie the trailer episode because he watched all those animated movies."
Oh my God, dude.
But yeah, I mean, it's funny. Last week we just had our final episode of quote unquote final episode of 2024. Yeah. I said happy holidays, but I did say if and when the trailer drops, we'd come back and here we are. Yeah.
Nice.
So I thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, audience. Once again, I wish you all happy holidays. We are going to be off on a short hiatus. We'll be back on January 14th, 2025 with brand new episodes. And I will say at our $1 tier on our Patreon, that's our Daily Planet Bullpen tier. And I've already announced the first episode of 2025. I'm going to be giving an exclusive sneak peek at the other early episodes of next year. So if you're inclined to join us over there, I would certainly appreciate it. And at that and other tiers, we also have a bunch of bonus episodes and exclusive content and early listens and all that sort of stuff. So thank you all. Happy holidays. The last thing I'll say is it's always interesting when we do an episode like this, because unlike virtually all of our other ones, which I feel like you can listen to whenever, right? Like this is very much in a certain moment in time, right? And I don't know what the shelf life on something like this is. I don't know that a year from now we won't necessarily be going back and listening to it, but you never know.
It will be good. It'll be great for us to go back after seeing the movie and go like, "Hey, we called it on this and this."
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We are on the record here, one way or the other. So, so thank you all. We'll see you soon. And until then, as always, it's about what you do. It's about action. Be sure to check out our sister podcast series, Another Exciting Episode in the Adventures of Superman, an episode-by-episode breakdown of the classic George Reeves television show, available wherever you get podcasts. Please join us on social media, become a patron, and subscribe, rate, and review today. Links are in the show notes. Thank you all.